Hi, welcome to the Peaceful Home. Today we're going to talk about sentimental children. Those are kids that just can't seem to part with anything. They're the ones that usually have 20 stuffed animals surrounding them when they go to bed, and they have piles of things that are extremely important to them, even though a parent thinks it's all junk. I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of my loyal subscribers. I recently hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is kind of the first milestone. And I'm just so grateful for your encouragement and support. If you're new here, allow me to introduce myself. I'm TeresaElling, and I'm a professional organizer, parenting coach, wife, and homeschool mom to 6 graduated kids. I love organizing people's homes, and I absolutely love coaching parents. But when I can combine the two together, that's the ultimate for me. I've been doing a series on organizing children's toys, and I will link all the ones below, the one on toddler toys, organizing kid toys. Today we're going to talk about sentimental children and decluttering, and I have a few more videos coming. Let's jump into 8 tips that will help. Number 1, realize that each of your children have unique personalities, gifts, and interests. There are no 2 children on the planet that are the same, let alone in your same family. It's so interesting to see how different our children can be from one another. And you might have one that seems to have no attachment to physical things, and another child that clings to everything in their life as being the most important thing, something they have to have and keep. Now, while we don't want to change their personalities, we do want to make sure that they can function in society, that they can have a well-organized and maintained home as well. In general, it takes time for your children to understand the difference between building memories and having relationships with people versus stuff. We have a hard enough time parting with things because we think that if we get rid of our great-grandma's casserole dish, we won't be able to remember her. Now, if that is absolutely the last thing you have from your great-grandma, I would suggest you hold on to it. But often we have many things from family members and we still feel we have to keep everything. I believe the best way to honor family members is to love and use the things that you've inherited without having any of them become a burden. That means that you don't feel any pressure to keep them just because they belong to a family member. You can help your kids starting right now so that they have an easier time decluttering throughout their life. Number 2, establish parameters for how much stuff a child can have. Now, again, this applies to us. We need to be responsible to steward our belongings well. That means we need to take good care of them. And when clutter builds up, when things are pushed into attics and garages and basements and we don't even know what we have, that's hardly taking care of our things. Another problem is when we have too much and it's so disorganized, or in the case with children, a lot of times things are on the floor, getting stepped on, broken, missing pieces, etc. One way to manage is to look at the container concept, which is, I need all of my blank to fit into this bin or this basket or on this shelf. Anything that doesn't fit has to go. Number 3 is to use the go versus stay method. I'm going to give you an example with hands down the most common problem I see parents have with toys, and that is stuffed animals. So let's just imagine that your child has 30 stuffed animals and they love them all. I would start first of all, maybe a week before, when you're in the car, when you're tucking them in bed, when you're having dinner, just throughout the days leading up to this, talk about what it means to keep your absolute favorites and how everyone has to be able to make choices on the things they're going to keep and the things that are going to go. This is going to get your child thinking and get them more prepared when you actually sit down to do this. Now you're going to take all of those animals, put them in the center of the room, and you're going to begin to lead your child through the decluttering process. When I've done this with clients, I typically do something like this. Okay, Janie, I want you to pick your 2 favorite stuffed animals. You give them a minute, they choose their 2 favorites. Now I want you to pick one that can go. Now, if they're already reluctant, just say, well, if you had to pick one that isn't your favorite, which one would that be? And then I ask, pick one more of your favorites that you'd like to keep. Let's choose 3 that can go. I'll interject here that it's important to talk to your children about donating items and that there are some children in the world that can't afford to buy new toys. When they donate their items, it enables other children that don't have toys to have some. This is a really important concept for giving and generosity, and I find that children grab onto it really well. At this point, you just continue to go back and forth. Choose one of your favorites. Choose one that can go. 2 more that you love. Choose 3 that can be donated. You do this until you get down to the end, which is the hardest part, because as you start closing that gap, the children are much more reluctant to not give up anything. If you can get to the end, awesome. If you're having some trouble, you might want to say, why don't we just keep these last 3? Something like that. It's a compromise, but also they're learning this skill. It's going to take time. And decluttering is definitely like an onion, 1 layer at a time. Now, this is assuming that you've established a number. For example, we're going to keep 10 stuffed animals, or all of the animals have to fit in this basket on the end of your bed. Number 4 is another decluttering technique I call the ABC method. The A's are the green light. Those are the things that you love that are definitely staying. Now, the C's are the red light. Those are the ones that we can part with. We know right away those can go and find a new home. Or they may need to go to the trash, which you can sneak those out later. Now, the B's, or the yellow light, are the undecided. We're just not sure about those. Now, usually, regardless of what you're decluttering, the B's or the yellow light are going to be the largest category, but it gets you started. The C's are off and done. The A's you know we're keeping, and you can look at how many more items you think you can keep or how many more will fit within your container. Then you can take all of the B's and you can either go back to the previous step, let's pick 1 to stay, 1 to go, back and forth as you weed down that middle category. I definitely would offer some sort of reward or incentive for your children getting through this process. When I have done this with clients, I've had several children that end up in tears because it's a very emotional process. So be compassionate and understanding, help them through. Don't demand perfection, and make sure to praise them and reward them. I actually just thought of one other method that works when you're really stuck, and I will just kind of tack that on at the end. Moving on to number 5. This works especially well with the last items they're trying to make decisions on, and that is maybe this is a toy that they no longer play with, but they're very attached to and they don't want to part with it. In that case, I would recommend the Keepsake Box. Now, I have a video on the 2 most important bins that every child should have. I will link that below. One of those is a Keepsake Box. So if they have something they really can't part with and there's room in their Keepsake Box, they are welcome to put it in there. Number 6, take photos of the most loved things that need to go on to find new homes. Now, children would love this assignment. You can give it to them kind of as a reward that they get to take pictures with all the things that they're donating. They can get really creative in the way that they want to do this. And then depending on how sentimental your child is, it may be very important to print those photos out. You can go to the dollar store and get a simple photo album where the photos slip into each page, and they can have their own little keepsake of the things that they've gotten rid of. You can also do a little string with clothespins and allow them to display those photos up in their room or possibly pin them on a bulletin board. You will find that over time, they either will want to take those photos down and they're done, or they might want to put those in their Keepsake Box. Number 7, you want to find out the best way for your children to donate their items. Now, for some kids, they're going to be okay with boxing everything up and actually going with you and dropping the donations off. Other children can't handle that process And they really need you to sneak those out when they're not watching. Now, I'm not talking about deceiving your children, but I would talk to them and ask them, what do you think would be easier for you? This is part of them learning to discover their own personalities and what works for them. And this will help them as they're an adult as well. One of the services I offer for free for my clients is to take their items directly to a donation center. The reason I offer that is twofold. Number one, when you just decluttered a space and you're getting organized, you don't want that stuff around anymore, so we move it out quickly. But the second reason is, for some clients, it's difficult to get rid of things. And often, as those boxes hang around for a few days, family members end up going back in, pulling things out, and before you know it, they're bringing that stuff back into the home. So assure your child that there's nothing wrong with wanting mom and dad to just take that box off quietly. You can also assure your child that you're going to put this box in the garage and it's going to stay there for a while. And then at the end of the month, or maybe 3 or 6 months down the road, you can donate those if your child hasn't asked for any of the items. And number 8, you need to recognize that this really could be a difficult process for your child. There could be a lot of tears involved, a lot of distress. Please don't ridicule them or tell them that it's ridiculous that they are mourning this loss. It is valid. Don't give in and allow them to have more items than what you originally said, but make sure that you are understanding and willing to hold their hand while they're processing this. Okay, that other item that I just thought of a few minutes ago is if you are really stuck, you have a child that is struggling so much, and maybe you went through the whole stuffed animal thing and they got rid of 4 things out of 30, and they are just distraught and really struggling. What I would do at that point is make sure that anytime they get a new toy, that there is not only a 1 in, 1 out rule, but it's actually a 1 in, 2 out rule, or 1 in, 3 out rule. And over time, you will be able to get the numbers where you want them. So that means that for a birthday or Christmas or other special occasion, let's say that they've gotten a new doll. They've unwrapped it, they're ready to play with it. What you do is tell your child that the doll is going to stay put until they choose 2 things that can be donated. As soon as they choose those and those are in the car ready to go, they can play with their new toy. Obviously, this technique does not move things through very quickly, but it is a way to make progress slowly but surely. I hope this video was helpful for you. Do you have trouble getting rid of sentimental things? I would love to hear your comments below. And I'm also curious if you have children with a large count of stuffed animals. How many do they have? As always, I welcome your questions and your suggestions for future videos. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Peaceful Home. I hope to see you soon.